So here we have it, the man of the hour. He played in the NFL for 11 years. He's a Super Bowl champion, an NFL Most Valuable Player, NFL Offensive Player of the Year, NFL Man of the Year, a two-time Pro Bowl, and of course, he's in the Washington Redskins Ring of Fame. Please welcome Washington Redskins all-time passing leader, Joe, the good-looking bastard, the Jersey Kid, Theismann. In the house. How are you, baby?
I'm good, Eddie. Thank you. I have to tell you, I've been introduced before in a lot of different places, but never quite like that. So you just set the record for the most amazing introduction I've ever gotten.
Oh my God, I feel honored, my man, Joe. Because introduction is the key. It's like talking to a beautiful woman. You want to charm her. You know what I mean? The first impression.
Well, yeah, you're charming me. I got it.
So, Joe, if I was your
I got to tell you, that
Go
degree you got, that degree you got at school at BS, and it's perfect. It's the perfect degree for you.
Well, it is a BS degree, right?
That's right. I have one too.
Joe, you growing up, if I was your parent, and I would say to myself, I don't have to worry where my child is because he's like 2 blocks away playing all day, right?
That's right.
So
yeah, that's exactly the way it was.
Right. I mean, but think about it. I was the same way. Like when I was growing up, we would play all day, every day, even after school. And then Saturday, Sunday, we'll play all day. And then your parents will come and say, come on, let's go. Dinner's ready. And you still want to play. And you're hoping your friend's parent comes too, because then they could continue talking and we could still play. Was it like that with you too?
No, really, it's funny. We had a set time. My dad worked 13 hours a day, 6 days a week. And I tell people all the time, my pop was my hero. I mean, I'll give you an explanation why. My dad would come home from work, like I say, 6 days a week. Sunday was our day off. We'd go to church. We'd sit down, have lunch. And then my dad would pop down in his easy chair and be asleep in a heartbeat. And I would constantly, as a kid, just go up and shake his arm and say, come on, Dad, let's go throw the ball around. Come on, Dad, let's go. He'd get up out of that chair, go out, throw the ball around with me. My buddies would come by in about 10 minutes and say, hey, Joe, we're going up to the school. We're going to go play some ball. Come on. I'd throw my father the glove. See you later, Pop. Never once did my dad, as hard as he worked and as long as he worked all those years, did he say to me, son, how about just letting me sit in this chair for a little bit? It's been a long week. My dad always got up out of that chair and always came out. Even it was for 5 minutes or 40 minutes or an hour. It didn't matter. And, to me, that's so special. And that's one of the great memories I have of my dad. I have many, but that's one of the ones of his unselfish nature and, just being there at a time when he couldn't make a lot of things I did, but he made himself available when he could. And I appreciate that so much. Actually, my mother, she was my wide receiver. She was my catcher. My mom was a terrific athlete and she was home earlier than Dad. So we'd go out and throw the ball around.
What's awesome is because, I grew up without a father, and it's like the stories like this, it's amazing because your father never said, no, I'm too tired. He did everything he can. I remember he was a gas station owner for 25 years, right? And a liquor store owner. I mean, he worked, he provided, man. He was the definition of a man.
Store opened at 10 o'clock in the morning, closed at 9 o'clock at night. I mean, that was, he worked my uncle's liquor store. I got to tell you a funny story though. In both the gas station business and the liquor store business, his cousin Johnny was a partner with him in the gas station, and then my uncle Johnny and his son John worked with my dad. So one day my dad comes home and he sits down at the dinner table and he says, "Hey John, pass me the salt." And I said, "Dad, I'm Joey." He says, "I know, John. Just pass me the salt."
But
he was around so many Johns. It was like, hey, I was just another John. I mean, it was so cool. Oh,
let me ask you this: as far as being disciplined, like I heard this story that he was doing through a sheetrock. He asked you to do something.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
What happened in that situation?
Stories.
Oh yeah.
These are good stories. So in the little house, as a matter of fact, the NFL did a football life on me, and I happened to go back to South River. Drew Pearson came in, was so nice of him, and LT went to the stadium with me. But I went back to my old house, in South River, New Jersey, and it hadn't changed hardly at all. I mean, the stairs, it was eerie walking in. Not a room had changed. And so the lady she let me go upstairs and look at the room that my father and I built. So we were putting sheetrock up one day, and I mouthed off to my dad. And the next thing I knew, my head was through the sheetrock. Thank good it didn't hit one of the 2x4s. But next thing I knew, my head was, I said something, it was a little smart ass. And all of a sudden, I'm on the other side of the sheetrock. And I was very careful with my words after that with my dad. He got the point across to me. Let's put it that way. But
Wow.
and then I tried to help him one day. Busting up cement outside. You know those claw hammers have the claw in the back.
Mhm.
I happened to put the claw in the back of my head. I mean, I'm not very good at doing things around the house. Okay, I just want to tell you that.
I'm the same way with my girlfriend. I'm like, she tells her friends, he don't do shit. Okay, I'm the handy woman. I'm like, oh yeah, she is. I'm not good with that stuff.
Robin's that way. Robin, listen, Netflix. Watch it. We're watching a great Netflix, by the way. For anybody out there, it's called Your Honor. Actually, it's on Paramount. It's
Your Honor with
Your Honor. Oh, awesome.
no, the one that's on Showtime, right? But it's not Showtime's not on anymore. I think
No, this
online,
is
right.
this is a Paramount. This is a Paramount.
So
And
Your
then
Honor,
just watching the Jack Reacher, the most recent Jack Reachers. Awesome.
oh yeah. Well,
Awesome.
guess what? I auditioned for that. I tested for the role, the hitman, the professional hitman. I don't know if you saw it, season 2.
Yeah.
He's the one that puts a knife through the doctor.
Through his arm.
No, in his throat because
Okay.
he needed a identity. He looked like the doctor a little bit.
Yeah.
He's like,
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I tested. And I couldn't believe I didn't get it. I was like, oh my god, because when you
Oh,
audition for big stuff like that, it's like it's a hit show, so you really want to be on this show. And
It's
then
life changing.
yeah,
I mean,
and
it
it's
really
like,
is.
and you're towards the end. It's like it's between you and him, and they pick him. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, there we go again.
Oh yeah, it was. He's a big man.
Yeah,
He is
yeah.
one big man.
Oh, but I'm not talking about that guy's character. I'm talking about the.
No, I know
hitman.
who the character you're talking about. I'm talking about Jack, the guy that plays Jack Reacher. I mean, I'm looking at him going left tackle, left
Oh
tackle,
yeah.
definitely a left tackle.
Joe, did you hear about the coincidence of your injury that night to Alex Smith?
Oh yeah, I'm very familiar. I was there that night.
No, but here's the thing. Listen to this. I'm going to post something right here. I'm going to show you something, the comparison. It's exactly the same.
It's eerie. It really is. I know.
Did you hear about the date and everything? So here.
I've heard it all. The date, the time, the place on the field, the same type
everything
of
was
injury.
Exact same thing.
And the other thing too is both of us were without our left tackles. Both of us were taken out by defensive players of the year. I didn't go through all the problems that Alex had and the complications after as he started to recover. And Eddie, the story of Alex Smith is the story of perseverance, not the story of an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
It's someone that just wouldn't allow anyone to tell him that he couldn't do something. I think to me, it's a great inspiration, I think, to everyone. To people come up to you so often and say, well, hey, you've got enough. You've done this. You've done that. Don't do that. But they don't know the person. Alex, the person, wasn't going to allow someone to dictate to him and say, okay, you've had a great career. You can move on to something else. No, it wasn't over for him. So you should, and people ask me all the time, what message would you like to share with people? Don't let anybody tell you that it's over till you decide it's over.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I think that's the Virgo out of you. You're very organized. You're very dedicated. When you commit to something, Joe, that's what I feel because I'm trying to play your character growing up. It's like I'm sure people were telling you you're too small, you're not too big, you can't handle this. Especially that Notre Dame story. That was crazy. You're at the airport, and the two coaches are like, one of the coaches is like, hey, where's that hotshot quarterback you're talking about? Like, he's right there.
A little kid.
That guy?
And the other coach points to me and goes, really? He doesn't look big enough to carry a water bucket. Well, yeah, listen, I left high school at about 155 pounds. I entered Notre Dame at 155, 160 pounds. I was one of 13 quarterbacks. But I was the skinniest little thing in the world. That was all they could do. That's skinny little Joey right there.
But the woman dreamed to have your waist right there. I mean, look at that.
Oh, you look at those pictures of me in college, women would kill to have that waist.
Oh, absolutely.
I guess that skinny lip, a little skinny waist. I think I was, I'm a little bit bigger than that, obviously now. But as a matter of fact, I put on almost 25 pounds since I left football. I never played football heavier than 185 pounds. Played 15 years. I never weighed more. I mean, I had this incredible metabolism, and then I worked out a little bit.
Yeah, well, look at that Redskins shirtless right there.
That picture was taken last week, Eddie.
Oh, last week? Oh, okay. Listen, Joe, let me tell you something. The woman must have been going crazy for you, right? Notre Dame. But here's the thing. When you play for Notre Dame, the enrollment, the females weren't there until you left.
Right. We were all male at that time. And then the ladies were over at St. Mary's, and then they went coeducation. We had some females in our classes with us in 71, my senior year. And then we went in 72, the university went that way. And it's funny, people ask me where I went to school, and I'll say I went to a small school in the Midwest called the University of Notre Dame. And everybody laughs because the reputation of Notre Dame, who Notre Dame is so much bigger than actually the enrollment. I think we're up to about 13,000 now. It's an incredible university. I'm so proud of what we've been able to do as a university, and our women's sports are just sensational. Our women are just fabulous, man. The guys are catching up to it. Marcus Freeman's doing a terrific job there with the football team, and I'm excited for this coming season again. We got another transfer in from Duke, young quarterback. And then we have a young one on the roster too. So, that's another thing, Eddie. Think of it. How hard is it to be a college coach today?
Very.
You recruit your rear end off, and then you get these guys for a year maybe. And if they wind up being number 2, they're not happy and they move on. And I just think they have to do something with the NILs, and they have to do something with the portal. Think of this. Brock Purdy's base salary, I think, is $870,000 this year, and he can't get any more money. They can't redo the deal because of the collective bargaining agreement. He's locked in. Most he's probably going to make this year, not including endorsements, but base salary in football, 1.3, 1.2 million. There's kids in college today that are making so much more than that. These, one-year wonders, and it's the thing has gotten upside down, to be honest with you.
Well, a prime example is one of the Manning's family member
Yeah, Arch,
Texas.
down in Texas, yeah.
He sat and he made $2.5 million.
He's still sitting because the kid down there is coming back.
Right, exactly.
Hey,
He's making more than Brock Purdy, and he's in the Super Bowl.
I keep telling Archie, let him transfer to Notre Dame. We'd love him. Tell Arch, hey, we'd love to have you stop by and visit.
Well, you know what? If he's going to sit again, why not transfer to another?
I don't know. I agree. Like I said, Archie and I have been friends for so many years, and the last text I sent him about it, he texted me back. He said, "You just don't stop, do you?" I said, "No, I don't." Well, yeah.
And Notre Dame. What is the main traditional stuff that you guys do, like before a game? Like, how Ohio State, they got this band, like it's the best band. What's Notre Dame known for behind the scenes of a college football game that us guys, especially New Yorkers, we don't know?
Well, as far as preparation now, I don't know how different it is today, but back when I was in school, we would stay across the lake. We wouldn't stay on campus. We would stay at a St. Joe monastery. All of us, we'd watch a movie together, and then we'd get something to eat, and then we'd go to our rooms. And the brothers and fathers there would leave, one would leave cookies for me. As a matter of fact, I stayed in somebody's room, and it wasn't 20 years later that I actually met him out in Phoenix, Arizona. But then we get up and we go to mass. And then you wander back to the campus, I go back to my room for a little bit and hang out. And then you had to be, if it's a 1:00 game, you had to be in the locker room at 10:00, I believe. And that was pretty much a routine that we went through. I mean, we were sequestered away from the rest of the students, but it was really funny. My room faced a lake, which was between us and campus, and you could hear all the things going on over on campus, all the parties. But we have a great tradition now. Our drum and bugle corps, or the drum line, they perform the night before. The band plays and marches through the middle of campus before the game. And I put our band up against anybody. But I will tell you this, one of the most astounding things I've ever seen is Texas A&M's band. It's just phenomenal. But I would put Notre Dame right up there with anybody as far as our band goes. When they come marching into that stadium with those high kicks, and every one of those drum majors is like 6'4", 6'5". I mean, they just come stomping in, and it's like, wow, this is really something.
The success. How did you handle it? Look, Sports Illustrated, front cover magazine, for Notre Dame, right? Like, what was the feeling like seeing that?
Now, it's flattering. But a long time ago, I realized, and this is a saying that I think is important, the quarterback position is the single most dependent position on a field. Think of it. Runners don't run. Receivers don't catch. Line doesn't block. Kickers don't make kicks. Defense doesn't stop people. You're all at the mercy of all those different elements. And I was just thrilled to be a quarterback there. I didn't pay attention to the hype, and then all of a sudden, my senior year, after a really good junior year, Roger Valdesari, our sports information director, calls me in and decides we're going to change the pronunciation of my last name from Theismann to Theismann in an effort to try and get the Heisman Trophy. It didn't quite work out that way. Jim Plunkett won it that year. But you think of the quarterbacks that were in that 70 class that played. Jim Plunkett at Stanford, Dennis Dummett at UCLA, Chuck Hickson at SMU, Rex Kern at Ohio State, Archie Manning at Mississippi, and I was at Notre Dame, and we had it was quite a class of guys that went on into some, almost all of us went into professional ball.
And you know what's crazy? People don't know this, but your senior year, spring, you actually played baseball for Notre Dame, 7 games, and you get drafted. How's that possible, Joe? Were you that good?
I actually love baseball. I was probably a better baseball player than I was a football player. But again, I was a skinny little kid. And the funny thing about it, you cannot find a picture of me in a Notre Dame baseball uniform. I tell people I loved it. I played baseball at Notre Dame, 7 games. But there's no physical proof as far as a picture goes. There are box scores. That's what saves me. And actually, I was a shortstop by trade. I played shortstop in Pop Warner League, Little League, and Triple ABA ball and all that kind of stuff. And then when I came to college, our shortstop was on half a scholarship because we only had one full baseball scholarship, the catcher and the shortstop. So I wound up playing third base in college, and I loved it. And then I had to leave for spring football.
Wow! But 7 games only, and you got drafted. How awesome is that? You look at the kids coming out of high school. Like Bryce Harper, just came out of high school, and some other guys like that are just, I'm not comparing myself to Bryce Harper. I'm just saying some guys come out of high school and go on, but I love the game. Like I said, you talked about it earlier. I grew up 2 blocks from my high school. You walk out my front door, 2 blocks away was a baseball diamond, a football field, tennis courts, basketball courts. We used to play stickball off of the buildings that were there. I mean, that's where I spent most of my time. So I spent most of my time after school and in the summer. And I can relate too, because I was at the schoolyard instead of the high school field, because I grew up in Brooklyn, and it's like all day, every day, especially when there was no school, we would play, man. We didn't care. We didn't care about video games. We just wanted to play.
We were one of the few houses. We had a lot that was, I have rooms in my house that are bigger than the lot that we had, but that was where everybody came. We played stickball there. We played football there. We played tag. We did all kinds of stuff. And it was a great time growing up in South River. All the guys I played Pop Warner ball with, we all went on to high school together, and all of us went different ways after that. But we had a great period of about 5-6 years together where we just sort of grew up, the offensive line, the defensive line, receivers, backs, quarterbacks, everybody. It was great.
Yeah, I can imagine. So now you get drafted, right? But then, people are saying this guy was a runner-up Heisman and 4th round. Does that make sense? Like, were you shocked about that, Joe? Were you expecting 1st round?
I sort of was, not because of what I thought my ability was, but because of the communications that I received from various teams. They were, they'd say, hey, if you're around the 1st round, we're going to draft you. And I kept thinking, I'd like to play in New York. like to play in Philadelphia. I'd like to be close to home. So you'd get the Dallas Cowboys came and contacted me. And somebody gave me some great advice. They said, think of this, Joe. Everybody you've heard from, they're not going to draft you. It's the team that you don't hear from, you're probably going to wind up being drafted by. And that's exactly the way it worked out for me. It was the Miami Dolphins. Actually, it was the third pick, but it was the fourth round. Because in 1971, I believe they had to give up a first-round pick to the Baltimore Colts because Shula left. So they forfeited that first-round pick. So I was really the third pick by the Dolphins that year.
And you try to become an agent as far as on your own. You're like, you know what? Let me negotiate this.
I'm a smart guy.
You graduated, right? So you're like,
I got a Notre Dame degree. I can figure this out.
Let me be the Ari Gold of Entourage. Let me see if I can do this, right? Is that what you tried? Go ahead. Talk to me about that.
So I wind up being drafted by the Toronto Argonauts and also the Miami Dolphins. So I fly, and these numbers will blow you away, especially in today's environment. But you got to remember, this is quite a few years ago. So I fly down to Miami and I meet with Joe Robbie, who's the owner. Joe Thomas was the general manager, but he was in having heart surgery. So I sit down with Mr. Robbie and he says to me, what do you want? I said, I want $35,000, $45,000, $55,000, a $35,000 signing bonus broke down over 3 years. He said, you got it. I thought, that ain't the way negotiations work. We're supposed to have a little give and take. But anyway, so I go on TV and I say, hey, come heck or high water, I'll be a Miami Dolphin. Well, they sent me the contract. They had me paying back the bonus if I didn't show up, and it just wasn't right. And so we went back and forth. Now, Shula leaves and goes off to team meetings or owners' meetings, league meetings, and he thinks I'm going to be signed, sealed, and delivered. The Argonauts call me and they offer me 50, all US dollars. So I wind up going up to Toronto and they said, look, if you leave the country, this offer's off the table. I signed the contract, flew back to South Bend. Eric calls me 6 o'clock in the morning. Eric Parsigia, my coach, who was my consultant, whom I never consulted, calls me and says, what in heaven's name have you done? I said, I signed with the Toronto Argonauts. He said, I know. Shula's on his way up here right now. Shula hopped on a plane, flew to South Bend, read me the riot act. I mean, absolutely. You had a moral obligation. I said, well, you did too, not to screw with my contract. They ultimately changed it. But this is where the emotions got involved instead of having someone to sort of be a buffer to the emotions. So I wound up going to Toronto, do not regret it at all. The 3 years I wasn't in Miami, 71, 72, and 73, I don't need to tell you what the Dolphins did in those years.
Joe, that's 3 Super Bowls, man.
I know.
And
Well,
you could have been part of history in 72, that undefeated season, because Greasy got hurt and there was 9 games left.
You know what I tell people all the time, Eddie, is, Miami Dolphin fans say, you didn't go to Miami. I said, yeah, and you have me to thank. So what do you mean? I said, well, when Bob got hurt, Don had traded for Earl Morrall from the Baltimore Colts. Earl came in and quarterbacked 9 of those games in the undefeated season. Now, I don't know if I would have quarterbacked 9 games and won them all. So from my perspective, I did them a favor by not going. So to all you Dolphin fans, you're welcome.
Okay, all right, I'm going to post that one too, all right, to the Dolphin fans. All right, so now, so they won 2 out of 3 Super Bowls, right? They went back to back to back, right?
Yep.
They lost the first one and they won the 72, 73, right? So now, the Redskins come after you. How did that happen? I think there was a first-round draft pick they had to. Yeah,
George Allen traded a number 1 pick to Miami for me. Came to Billy Kilmer and Sonny Jurgensen were the quarterbacks, and I sort of made the mistake. I alienated him a wee bit. I came to town. I said I came here to play, not to sit, and. Sonny, Hall of Famer, unbelievable. Billy, one of the toughest people I've ever seen in my life. And what a great leader he was, too. And didn't appreciate any of that when you're competing. I mean, as time has gone by and you step back and you watch these people and you watch Sonny throw the football, man, it was poetry in motion. He'd step to the left and he'd just they drop that thing down about 3/4 sidearm and just the ball would float through the air magically. It was perfect, just easy to catch. Always on time. Billy had small hands, had to grip the back of the ball. Ball wobbled a bit. excuse me. So, it was, but then I wanted to play. So I spent my first 2 years as a punt returner. Excuse me. Spent my first 2 years as a punt returner, 74 and 75. And I loved it. I did it in Canada when I was up there too. I used to catch the ball and have to kick it back.
But Joe,
So
hold
for
on
me,
a minute. This is what's scary, all right? Being a punt returner, you catch the ball and you see 11 guys coming after you, like 11 lions, like animals. Aren't you scared shit?
well, you don't see, you don't see the guys, Eddie. What you see is you're looking for an escape route.
Oh, okay.
You're looking for a little crack, a little hole. You can make the first 2 or 3 miss pretty easily because they're running full speed. You just give them a limp leg and just go. I wasn't ever fast, but I was sort of quick. So I could make people miss a little bit. Almost returned one against the Cowboys. I almost had one against the Cowboys. Never forget, the spaces opened up in front of me and somebody caught my foot. I don't know if I'd have made it as far as I had to go, but it was exciting. I loved it. I absolutely loved returning punts. People have asked me, if you could go back and play football, what would be the one thing you'd love to do? I said, man, let me go back and return punts. Wow. It's just the coolest thing in the world. I watch these guys today. I don't understand why nobody listens. I'm sure the coach says, hey, look, if you're on the 5-yard line, don't field the punt. Don't field it. I used to have the 10-yard line was mine. If I lined up on the 10 and the ball went over my head, I think there's a pretty good chance it's going to go in the end zone. Yeah. Matter of fact, I think, and I watch guys field punts on the 2, the 3, the 4-yard line. I'm thinking to myself, hasn't anybody taught you how to field punts? You're talking about 15, 20 yards of field position. Ball goes in the end zone, you get it on 20. What's the chances of that ball bouncing and like hitting a 9-iron and spinning back?
No,
what, 1 in 50 or 60? Yeah. I sort of shake my head sometimes and I think, man, that's not smart football. It's just not smart.
And Joe, but what was your preparation like? You're on the bench, right? What did you do? Did you come early for film work and study the playbooks? And were you just that prepared? And you said to yourself, once I get my opportunity, I'm taking advantage. Were you that guy?
Yeah, I was. I used to stay after practice every day, and I'd take the second, third string wide receivers, and we'd go out and we'd run the routes. Mm-hmm. Roy Jefferson and Charlie Taylor were my wide receivers, and then I would take anybody I would. Come on, let's go out and throw it around. I'd stay another hour after practice. Larry Fitzgerald's a fantastic person, great, Hall of Famer, eminent Hall of Famer. I watched Larry at practice one day out when he was in Arizona, and we were going to interview him for our production meeting for a game we were broadcasting. He stayed out on the field and caught upwards of 50 extra passes from a jug machine. He just caught pass after pass after pass, and it's not too hard to look at people and say, why is he so great? What made him so great? It's not the time you put in that's scheduled. It's the time you put in after the schedule that I think separates a lot of these guys from guys that are just, they want to be good, but they don't know how to be good. Mm-hmm. And to me, that was the only thing I could do. I wasn't playing and I loved the game. And so I went out and I caught punts before practice and after practice. I threw the ball around before and after. But it was like I was a kid again. It was like I was back at South River High School, headed up to the playground, go out and throw the ball around, take my drops, work on the routes.
But would you see other backup players, not necessarily just the quarterback position, but other backups that were like, all right, practice over, I'm out of here?
Yeah, some guys would hang out and stay around. Yeah, some guys would do it. Keep a tight end around, keep a couple wide receivers around. The guys were more than happy to do it because they weren't playing much either.
But those two quarterbacks, did they really help you out, Joe? Or were they like, whatever, kid? Come on,
they didn't like me.
They didn't like you. See, I knew it.
I'll tell you what's funny. So when I was broadcasting, Sonny Jurgensen he did radio for us for a long time. Sonny and I were out at practice one day and we were riding in this golf cart going somewhere. And I said, Sonny, I got to ask you a question. I said, I've heard stories about you and Billy really, really not liking me at all. Is that true? He said, absolutely. Okay. Fair enough. I mean, I was a cocky kid who wanted to play, and I made my feelings heard. So, Would I do it differently? Probably not, because that's not who I am. You think a lot more about what you want to do, and there are very few guys that get a chance to play quarterback in the National Football League. There are only about, I think, 37 or 38 of us that have ever had the opportunity to quarterback a world championship football team. So it's rarefied air if you get that opportunity, and it's the kind of thing that you have the rest of your life. Nobody votes on it. You earned it with a group of guys, and really an organization. You earn it with all the support in the organization, and it's a special. What they're about to embark on this week is a very special time.
Yeah. Joe, I keep telling people, look, I didn't play professional sports, but just be in these guys' shoes. Do you know how hard it is to get there and to win it? It's so hard. You need the football gods on your side. You need to eliminate the mistakes as far as your team and capitalize on the opponent mistakes if they make mistakes. It's really hard.
Look at the 2 conference championships.
Yeah.
Baltimore, great play by a defender knocking the ball away from Flowers. But then you get a taunting penalty. And then you helped Kansas City on a drive by getting 2 15-yard penalties. Yeah. Detroit, everybody's talked about Dan Campbell and the 4th down calls. Heck, if the guy catches the pass and doesn't drop it, one of those 4th downs, you don't know. So, you don't know what play is going to make a difference. It's like, knocking the ball away from Kimbo Camper. You don't know how much that I know that we would not have come back having to throw a ball against that defense.
Oh my God, that was clutch by you.
But what plays? Jackie Smith dropping a touchdown pass, in one of the Cowboys Super Bowls. You look at the plays in these games, and it's that moment. Cincinnati and Kansas City in the AFC Championship game when the guy hit Patrick out of bounds. You have to play with emotion. You have to play with everything, but you got to be smart.
Yeah.
You just can't do things that ultimately wind up costing you an opportunity truly of a lifetime. It is an opportunity of a lifetime. There's no guarantee that you're going to ride that merry-go-round again and that brass ring's going to be sitting there for you. Now, Patrick is the exception to the rule. Been in 4 Super Bowls. The kid's phenomenal. And I think he's the best quarterback in football. Not only the best quarterback in football, he's probably the best. He's the most entertaining. He's got a lot of Brett Favre in him as far as the flashiness goes, to be able to make plays and move around. There was a great piece, I think it might have been on ESPN, I'm not sure, maybe the NFL Network, with Steph Curry analyzing Patrick Mahomes as a basketball player.
Wow. And
Patrick talking about his basketball skills, helping him as a quarterback. He said, people look at me and they don't think I'm moving very fast. But he said, what I was able to do in basketball was see the court. What I'm able to do as I move in football, I can see the defense. I can see the players. And our game is so visual. It's so visual. I can close my eyes and and see routes. I know where all 5 guys were. And then it's like an overhead overlay. And then you know where the defense is, and then you figure out the hole and throw the ball there. But it's all done in split seconds.
But Joe, it takes your mind. It takes a lot of reps to have that, right? You got to see it, and then you build more confidence, right?
That's why I never let anybody else practice but me.
Right.
Nobody ever ran plays in the offense but me, because you don't have a lot of time, and even less now, because if they keep you out too long, players complain.
Right.
I don't know why a player would complain about working hard to be great instead of good. That baffles my mind. I see certain teams where these players complain that they're being worked so hard. Don't you want to be great? Yeah. Don't you want to be the best? What's wrong? What's wrong with you? Exactly. I'm sorry. I can't comprehend that.
Joe, I totally agree, because when I played college baseball, I was like you, taking extra swings, taking extra BP, taking, fly balls. I didn't care, because I didn't want to be average. I want to be on top.
Right. Why not?
Yeah. Why not? If you have the opportunity, if you're healthy,
if you're going to do something, why not try to be the best at it?
Right.
I'm not a big fan of average, nor am I a big fan of mediocrity.
Exactly.
I just feel like if I'm going to do it, let's just give it all we got. Life's too darn short.
And you know what, Joe, too, in life, it's play to win attitude, meaning it's not necessarily in sports, but achieving in life, doing what you have to do. That's another thing where I think a lot of athletes that become successful after sports and they're still successful doing something is they got that play to win attitude. Because
Yeah.
I noticed what I learned from CEOs, these big companies, corporate companies, is that they rather hire a student athlete than just a student.
There's an
Because
aspect.
yeah, the
Absolutely.
athlete knows how to deal with failure. He's not going to give up. He's going to say, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to win.
Now, I wrote a book, Eddie, called How to Be a Champion Every Day.
Mm-hmm.
The essence of the book talks about exactly what you're talking about. I talk about goals and attitudes, client services, customer service, patient services. It doesn't matter what field you're in, being a part of a team, seizing the opportunity. Everybody's motivated by something different. Some by money, some by pride, some by recognition, some by fear. And inside the book, I tell stories, and it's not a story. It's not a book about football. It's a book about life. Like I said about Alex. Alex Smith's life is not about a football player. It's about who he is as a person. And that's sort of what I tried to do with the book, is take the world of sports, the world of business in our own lives and show how they parallel one another. And so trying to be the best that you can possibly be is important because, like I say, you don't know when Dan Marino never won a Super Bowl. Jim Kelly never won a Super Bowl. Hall of Famers, certifiable Hall of Famers, never had a chance to put that ring on. It's special.
And then even if you get there, you still got to win it because remember, nobody will remember the losers.
They never
They'll
do.
Always remember the winners. That's the bottom
They never
line.
do. You're so right, Eddie.
Yeah.
So right.
I'm telling you, right? Like I interviewed Greg Lloyd from the Steelers, and
Yep.
he even said no one's going to remember the losers. Hell no. That's what he said exactly.
Never do. Never do. Mm-mm.
And Joe, here's another thing. Do you know any other third string quarterbacks when you were third stringer that owns a restaurant, book deals? I mean, help me out with this. Maybe I should give tips to these backup guys.
I had all these things. In Washington. I had my own, radio shows. I did morning drive for 2 years. I was a disc jockey for 2 years also.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, I did it.
Well, you spinning the records really well.
Oh yeah, we just, we were, I'd get in 6 to 9 every, in the off season, 82 and 83. And then I had my own restaurants. My partners and I had restaurants, and then I had TV shows, and I did a lot. I was very fortunate in the city of Washington. Everybody was wonderful. Still have a restaurant there called Joe Theismann's in Alexandria, Virginia, and started in the business in 1975. When
I was born, Joe, just to keep you younger, okay?
Just to keep it in perspective, Eddie.
Right, exactly.
That's right. But it's a great lesson in business. I learned the hard way in business through the restaurant business about what business was all like.
Now, how come Joe Gibbs and you didn't see eye to eye? I mean, come on now. What's going on there?
Well, the thing is Joe had a certain vision of what he wanted his quarterback to be, and I don't think I fit that mold. As a matter of fact, he got there in 81 and we were 0-5. And things just didn't seem like they were driving. We brought the San Diego Charger offense to Washington. Throw the ball around a lot, but that isn't who we were. Our personnel didn't necessarily fit the system, and maybe I didn't fit the system. And so I went to Joe's house after we lost to San Francisco the 5th game, and we had a sit down. And he said, "Joe, you have restaurants, TV shows, all this kind of stuff." He said, "I just want a guy who's going to be a quarterback." I said, "I'll get rid of everything. I'll prove to you I can be your quarterback. But what I'd like you to do for me is give me a chance. Just give me a chance." So we changed the offense a little bit more. John Riggins became our bell cow, and he was the guy. And, my job was to keep the chains moving. And we got in the red zone to be able to execute. And so from that day, when we met, the next game, we beat Chicago. Neil Olkowitz intercepted a pass. I think Dave Butts fell on a fumble. We barely beat him, but it started a trend for us. We went 8-3 the rest of that year, 12-1, won a world championship, 16-3, back to a Super Bowl, 11-5, win the division. And then I get hurt in 85 when we're 4-5. And so, that meeting with Joe was so instrumental to, I think, where I went as his quarterback and where we went as a football team. And, everybody wants something now. Eddie, you have to have it right now. We have to have immediate success. This is why I admire the Pittsburgh Steelers so much. Do you know how many coaches they've had in 55 years? 3.
Yep.
3. Do you know how many coaches the Carolina Panthers have had in what, 5 years? 4. So I mean, it's, maybe it's the impatience of ownership sometimes, but you have to give people a chance to be able to figure out what they have so that they can figure out what's the best way to make it work.
Right.
And that's what they've done.
That Super Bowl, when you beat the Dolphins, was Shula like even more mad at you because you turned them down back in the 70s? And now here you are on the big stage against the Dolphins.
I turned them down. I turned them down in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Had we beat the Dolphins in the Super Bowl XVII. And then I don't know whether you realize this, I broadcast Super Bowl XIX with Frank Gifford and Don Meredith.
Yeah.
I played in 17, played in it, and I broadcast 19. And guess who played in Super Bowl XIX? The Miami Dolphins and the San Francisco 49ers in Palo Alto, California. So now he sees me for a third time. And things don't quite go very well again. But over years, Shu was an unbelievable man. And over years, we didn't laugh about it, but he was cordial to me at least. But he wasn't happy with me. Seems like every time I showed up, nothing really good happened. So, but it was an interesting relationship.
All right, Joe, I want you to be specific. Where'd you party after the Super Bowl that night? Come on, talk to me.
I don't remember.
Don't even try that. Don't remember shit with me.
I remember Mark Mosley and I standing up in a limousine, screaming and yelling down the streets of Los Angeles. I remember the wind in my hair, Eddie. I guess you could say that, or the wind in my hair. And then I look at some of the pictures back then, and I've got I got this goofy, funky sweater on, and I'm doing Johnny Carson, I'm doing Letterman, I'm doing all these people that I watched on TV. Now all of a sudden you're part of that craziness. And it was an unbelievable experience to be able to share with so many different people. Matter of fact, we didn't get a chance to be a part of the parade here in Washington because a lot of us went on to Hawaii from Pasadena to go to the Pro Bowl. Mm-hmm. So, we missed 500,000 people here in the city of Washington on a rainy, miserable day just to welcome the football team. And, these are the days that they want back. These are the days that they're hoping to get back to being competitive to a point where, people start talking about us like the 49ers, like the Chiefs, like the Bills, like the Cowboys are talked about as a team that can compete, and the Eagles. This division's not any easier.
It's tough, this division. Oh, my God.
It is.
Yeah. And then you guys went back to the big stage again the following year, Joe.
Yep. Went back again, and what woulda, coulda, shoulda, I guess, is one of those things. If we had a chance to win, if we'd won that, people would consider us one of the greatest 2 or 3 teams in the history of football. We set a scoring record that year. I think 521 points.
You only lost 2 games by like 1 point.
Plus 2 games by 1 point.
Right.
We averaged almost 35 points a game. I just played bad. I played bad in the Super Bowl. That's it's crazy. It's that one game where you don't play well. I mean, let's take the San Francisco 49ers. It's not a Super Bowl, but look at the game that Brock Purdy played against the Baltimore Ravens. 4 interceptions. Yeah. You don't know. You don't want it to be that game. You don't want it to be in that moment. It happened that I just didn't play very good football. I think, and I know Marcus Allen was the MVP, but I think Reggie Kinlaw, who was their nose tackle, shut our running game down. Tackle to tackle. We couldn't, I'm looking at 2nd and 8s all the time. And then, of course, the interception at the end of the half was a backbreaker. We were down 14-3. Now it's 21-3 against a heck of a football team. And in the meantime, they had acquired some great football players. So, it just turned out. I'm thankful and blessed that I had an opportunity to play on one that won. And I learned the experiences of life on one that didn't win.
But, the best feeling back to 83, when you guys won the Super Bowl, 82-83 season, happened in January 83. It's just you and George Michael from the Sports Machine, right? It's a great feeling.
Unbelievable moment.
And the scoreboard,
unbelievable moment.
Right there.
Yep.
You and him looking at the scoreboard, right?
It's incredible.
Right? That thrill, that joy, like no one could take that away from you.
I can close my eyes today, Eddie, and I can feel the stillness in that stadium. In California, when the sun goes down, there's almost like a misty, it's like a weird feeling. And I remember sitting there with George talking about the game, and looking. I can still close my eyes and look up at that scoreboard. 27-17. I'm thinking, wow, man, we did it. We did it. We actually did it. And the big celebration on the field. We don't have those today. We didn't have it back then. It was us. But I'm so glad that George and I sat and visited in that environment where it was really just us in the stadium. And it was, I'm there with a friend who, happened to have unbelievable shows, but, to be there by yourself in that moment was just something very, very special. And I got to head out too here, Eddie.
All right, I know you got to head out. All right, listen. All right, one more question, and I'll dismiss you. All right. Okay. Obviously, we all know about the '85 situation, you getting hurt. But my question is, that stadium, is there a ditch when you got hurt, or was it just a legitimate hit, accidentally? Like, how was RFK?
It was old RFK is going to be torn down.
Mm-hmm.
But Lawrence, when we did that Football Life, Lawrence came up and he and I walked around the stadium at that time and just talked about it. He was the greatest defensive player in that era. I mean, nobody could block him. He was an unbelievable athlete. When he hit you, it was like he had a ton of bricks with him. He could outrun everybody. He wasn't a workout guy. He was just a natural great athlete who had a passion for the game. LT had a passion for life and a passion for the game. And we used to when we used to get ready for defenses, we'd put all those little V's and B's and C's and S's that denote what a defense looks like. And then we put a big number 56 up there, which basically said, pay special attention to this guy. Once I didn't, and look where I wound up.
Right. Well, listen, it's better to happen at 35 than 25.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So look at the positive side.
Oh, yeah.
Listen.
It was a blessing.
Yeah, I talked to Leonard Marshall because I was on my podcast, but I called him. I was like, listen, I'm interviewing Joe Theismann. Oh, man, I love that guy. Look, man, when he got hurt, we were there for him, man. We were emotional. We were like praying. LT will call 48 hours later to make sure he's all right. We were thinking about him, man. We have a lot of respect for him, It was a great rivalry for us. The Dallas, Philadelphia, New York, and Washington, we really, really had terrific football teams. We really had, and we loved, it was back and forth all the time with us. But, everybody talks about how great LT was and is when he played. Leonard Marshall, I think, contributed tremendously too, because they played next to one another. Mm-hmm. And Leonard Marshall was sort of the guy that wound up being the occupier and T was the destroyer, or vice versa, the way it worked out at times. But, everything in our business has a complement to it. No one individual is so great that they can do it by themselves. And Joe, and you made LT feel better. It's like you told him, listen, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to tackle me. It's not your fault,
Hey, we went, it's two gunfighters. It's high noon. This is it. I get taken out by the best in the game.
But what's crazy? In the video, they thought he was taunting you when he was telling the medical staff, "Get over here, quick, hurry up." They thought he was. No, he wasn't. But that's what people thought.
Yeah, well, I've only seen the video once, and believe me, he wasn't
taunting. He was like, "Get medical here, quick!" Like
calling for help. Yep.
Oh man. Well, look,
Eddie, thank you.
I know you got to go. Joe Theismann in the house. I love you, brother. We'll be in the Super Bowl. We're flying Tuesday, so if I see you there, I'll see you there.
I look forward to it, Eddie. Thanks so much for having me.
You got it. Have fun.
Take care, buddy. Bye-bye.